everyone. Welcome to Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. I'm your host, Marissa B. Today, we've invited a previous guest speaker back to discuss Goddess Astrology. I'd like to welcome back the owner of Intentional Holistic Healing, licensed massage therapist, spiritual embodiment coach, and volunteer child advocate, Stephanie Minnick. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Marissa. Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you for coming. This is fascinating to me. I need you to explain to our audience everything about Goddess Astrology. First of all, I have to say, before I even ask you that I am totally baffled with astrology. I've actually done a 10-week course with somebody pretty famous in astrology in New York. And it was a wonderful course, but at the end of it, I understood nothing. So Goddess astrology is even more fascinating, and I'd like to know what does it entail and how is it different? Can you explain that to the audience?
So it is not that different from regular astrology. It is, so my approach is looking at the asteroids, whereas regular astrology, you're looking primarily at the planets, you're looking at the sun, Venus, Mercury, Pluto, the big planets. That is primarily a masculine approach because the only two planets that represent the feminine are the moon and Venus. And goddess astrology, I am looking at the feminine asteroids. So, if you remember the Greek myths from high school that we learned about, I'm looking at those types of asteroids and archetypes in the natal chart. And I'm also looking at dark goddess energy in the natal chart. So, Kali, Medusa, Eris, those types of archetypes and energies in the natal chart. And it gives such a deeper layer of meaning to our stories, our experiences. And it is such a beautiful way to see the feminine represented throughout our natal chart, which we don't necessarily get with traditional the traditional masculine approach. And this for
Didn't even
me
know it was in there.
was
Like I didn't even know you could find asteroids in there. That's
I
evidently something.
there are tens of thousands of asteroids
That
that
I
you
know.
can look up. And this is something I fell into this. This was a passion project turned into something that I now offer in my business. And I've always been, interested in astrology, but about 4 or 5 years ago, I had a reading from a woman who I worked with 20 years ago. I trusted her. I had a very in-depth reading with her. It was phenomenal. I was like, how does she know all of this stuff from looking at my chart? So I started dabbling in astrology, and it is very overwhelming. When you're first getting into it, there is so much to know. And even 5 years into this, I feel like I know nothing. And I know that I still know a decent amount. Um, so I was dabbling in astrology, and I am a massage therapist. I work around embodiment. My clients, I am working with them on recovery from trauma, specifically grief and sexual trauma. So I'm very focused on mind body connection. My goal with them is self advocacy. So I have a lot of interest and fascination with repression of feminine expression. And if we looked back historically to our ancestors, if we look at the witch trials, there's so many different ways that the feminine essence has been repressed through society, through history, through our family conditioning. And I started, I was really on a healing journey for myself around shame and guilt and grief, and just learning how to speak up for myself as a woman in society, as a married woman, as a daughter, as an elder sibling. I was trying to figure out ways to overcome my experiences that had led me to kind of put myself in a box and silence myself. I wanted to get better at communication, effective communication. I wanted to get better at sticking up for myself really, just in any situation, whether it be with a boss, with my mother, or with my husband, you know. um so I took what I was learning with astrology and I started digging into, the Salem and the witch hunts and the witch trials and the reasons in which women were burned
Always
and
condemned,
hung and
always
having,
condemned.
yeah, all of those things. And especially being in the healing arts, being a massage therapist, being somebody who works with herbs, this is ever more present. I think during COVID, we did see a backlash around natural healing. We saw a lot of censorship around natural healers. And I felt this, I just felt a lot of rage and a lot of infuriation at the way that people were being silenced for offering up alternatives.
Mhm.
So I started digging into this, like, why am I so angry
Mhm.
about this? And I fell into these holes about the witch wounds
Mhm.
and the self-silencing that comes with that, the putting ourselves in a box and
Mhm.
not allowing ourselves to take up space, not allowing ourselves to be seen because of that
Well, think
fear.
about it. You
Um,
couldn't say a word before because you could be killed. I mean, that's the reality of it,
it's
right? So it kind of comes ancestrally of
it
keeping quiet.
It does. And that's something that I talk about with my clients and in the astrology books that I've made is that we know that epigenetic trauma, I mean, it imprints on our cells. It
Mhm.
is handed down through our ancestors. We know this from studies with the Holocaust, looking at 3, 4 generations later, what has happened to them. Um, so why not also witchcraft? Why not also the women that were being burned at the stake and the mothers that stood there with their child looking on? You know what I mean? And seeing this play out present day on social media and just our culture in general with cancel culture.
Mhm.
um, it is very similar to witch hunts and to burning people alive for daring to speak. There's a lot of
Right.
similarity. And I think that I can't speak for men. I can speak for myself as a
Mhm.
woman. There is a lot of backlash when you are willing to offer up a different truth.
Mhm.
When you're willing to take a stand that others are fearful to take, there is inevitably backlash. So I was pulling together this, historical information, pulling together what I know to be true as a massage therapist about the way that we repress things and they show up later as disease in the body. And, doing my research around shame and guilt and how that again shows up in our body, in our tissues. Our tissues, the cells in our body hold memory, whether it's ancestral memory or it's memory from when we were 5 years old. And being able to work that out through body work and energetic work is important for our ability to effectively self advocate. So I started falling into the dark goddess energy, to deal with shame and everything. Dark goddess energy is really about the things that we have been forced as women to repress. It's
Suppressed.
about our sacred rage. It's about our sensuality, our sexuality. It is about our voice, about
Mhm.
our emotions. I mean, women historically were shut up in prisons. They had their tongues cut out. They had
Well,
their
they were
wombs cut
fearful.
out.
They were fearful. Men were fearful. They
They
didn't
were,
understand. They certainly didn't
yeah,
think the same way, right? They don't think the same way. They don't understand. And so they're fearful. And, what's the best thing to do? Stamp that all out.
yeah. So I think that women have a valid reason for being afraid to I can it's so funny because I can feel my throat getting warm just having these conversations. We have valid reasons to fear speaking up. There's a lot of feminine betrayal out there from the women before us, especially with regards to sexual trauma being handed down in the family. That
Mm.
kind of abuse where women have looked the other way, stayed silent, disbelieved. So the dark goddess energy really, really resonated with me because I'm a massage therapist and I can be calm and, all of
Mhm,
those things, but I am a fiery person.
mhm,
I am an advocate. I talk about advocacy. I promote advocacy at all costs, and it resonated with me so much because I was able to reflect back on so many situations in my life that I desperately wanted to speak up for myself. And I was valid in that yearning, and I didn't because I was afraid. And there's so much fear around what people will think of us. There's so much fear around losing people
mhm,
that we love. There's so much fear around being shunned from family. Should we be the black sheep that dares to speak up? And yeah, I just started putting all that to work. And I realized that you can look up these dark goddess asteroids in the natal chart, and you can look up these asteroids related to grief, trauma, ancestral trauma. You can look up hope. You can look up holistic healing goddesses and resurrection energy and all of those types of things. And what I did, I'm just going to hold this up for a second to show you how deep into this I got. I plotted everything in my chart that I've
oh,
looked up
wow, look at that.
on a little poster board, because I was doing all of this research and I needed to see it flat out because, in astrology, we have the 12 houses.
Yes.
Well, each one of those houses signifies a different slice of
Mhm,
your life,
right.
and then we have the different energies, the different signs, and
Mhm,
that dictates kind of the energy of what's going on in that house.
right.
And then you have the planets, and then you have the asteroids. And what I was finding was, some of these very, very pertinent asteroids like Kali. Kali is the Hindu goddess of
Mhm,
destruction. If you've ever seen pictures of her, she is
yes.
very fearsome. But, the thing with dark goddesses is that they have been given this rap of darkness, AKA badness.
Mhm,
And it's really, they're willing to express the full nature of the feminine. And the feminine is death and destruction as well as creation and birth. You
mhm,
cannot birth something without something dying. You
mhm,
cannot create without something decaying, and when we look at nature for those lessons, I think that we're able to like integrate these cycles of life and death, on a much deeper level. So, um, Kali is very much about slaying your ego. She is about the truth of your higher self being the most important part of your soul work here. She is about destruction, but for your empowerment.
mhm.
Whatever is happening here, that is just chaos and rubble, make something grow from it. And I've always had that kind of mindset. I've been able to make something happen from the really painful experiences in my life. And if anybody has question about those, you can see the last episode,
Yes, I was going to
where
say there's a lot of information there. And it is, and it's funny because I come from the opposite end of the spectrum, where I come from a very long line of strong women and many strong women ancestors. And so my dealing with this is, why are no women speaking up? All women should speak up, and all women should be in their full power, and all women should be allowed to have their full power. And oftentimes I have to go back and watch. That's why this to me is so fascinating, because I come from that background. Like, why would I not speak up? I mean, I was taught to speak up. I mean, I remember I was a little girl. My father said to me, if you believe you're right, don't let anyone ever tell you you're wrong. You're not going to be rude to someone, but you're going to stand up for what you believe. I
yeah,
was maybe 7, 8 years old. I remember like it was yesterday. I couldn't imagine ever not speaking up, not speaking of what was on my mind and my beliefs. And not disrespectful, but and of course not against anyone. So that's why I can't understand what woman would not want to speak her mind. And so I find this fascinating. And I do understand that the dark, I mean, the dark is, what is it? It's strength. It's not darkness. You know, darkness has an
Yes.
evil connotation, a bad connotation, but who's given it that connotation? It's just the opposite of light. It's just the opposite of a term light. Daylight,
Yes.
night, night, that's really all it is. And yet they're trying to make it look so evil. And we know
Yeah.
many a book has shown many a woman as evil. Yeah.
Well, and that's, I'm glad that you said that. And I love that you were able to grow up in an environment like that, because it is a very precious thing that I don't think enough women have access to. And conversely, I grew up in an environment where the women did look the other way. They looked the other way, not only looked the other way, but admonished me for my strength and my decision to go another path. So not only was I felt like I was in a box because of my sexual trauma and just that embarrassment of like, don't speak, don't tell the
Mhm.
truth, don't let anybody see what's going on. But then the adults and the women in my life were looking the other way. So I spent so many years thinking like clearly something's wrong with me. Like I'm the only one who's different here.
Mhm.
It must be me, so I better just be
Mhm.
quiet, And but there's that internal knowing that this is not
It's not
okay.
right. Yeah,
Something
something's
is
not right.
wrong here. Why am I a child who sees what's wrong and I'm being told by an adult to be quiet? It's such a distorted and sad experience for children to go through when they are not encouraged by the adults in their lives to be in integrity. And it comes from the adults in my life, their own
Their
wounding,
wounds,
their
right?
own inability,
Their wounds.
but we internalize that as kids and we think that it's something wrong with us. It's something I did wrong. I have to be different so that they can love and accept me. They can't even love and accept themselves. You realize, as you grow into adulthood. And so yeah, finding this information in the natal chart helped me realize, because Kali sits next to my north node. Our north node is about our karmic purpose and our karmic, like our path, what we are supposed to be doing. And I was like, wow, that kind of makes my mindset that I've had my whole life, that I've kind of been demonized for, like, oh, must be nice to have a bright, happy outlook. And it's like, it's kind of a choice. Like,
Well,
but I
yes, it's
realize
a choice that's
it's
needed, really, right? It's needed. It's needed to have
yeah,
that.
and it's and I was very open in my last meeting with you about, my work around sexual trauma stems from my own experience with sexual trauma. um Medusa, the snake-haired
Mhm.
Gorgon monster,
Mhm.
um she actually, there's so many different tales around Medusa, and I need to do a
Mhm.
workshop, but just, a short on her is that she was a dedicated priestess in Athena's temple, and then she was raped by Poseidon. And when she was raped, Athena turned her from this beautiful priestess into this snake-haired
Mhm.
villain. So in the astrological chart, a lot of people see Medusa as representing feminine betrayal, like what happens to us when we've been victimized, but we get turned into the monster.
Mhm.
I've also heard perspectives around Athena having done that as a protective measure, where Medusa gets to
Hmm.
really kind of throw back in men's face what they did to her. They can't look at her without turning to
Well, there
stone.
you go.
And if you think about, the female gaze, we're supposed to look down. We're supposed to
Well,
look down and be
that's what
quiet.
was, oh, yeah, that's actually what was, actually, they, that historically women have been painted that way as well, with their eyes
And
averting the stare, right? It's supposed
yeah,
to be women, they're more
and
demure if they're looking down or sideways. They're looking off to the side, or their eyes are glanced sideways.
And it's, for survival purposes, you actually assert your dominance by staring straight at somebody. If you are a woman on the street holding your head high and looking at somebody, it makes other people uncomfortable. They will look away typically. But it also says, I see you. I see you. I'm taking in your characteristics and all of that. So Medusa actually sits next to my sun in my natal chart, and our sun is our identity. So having that so closely entwined, that energy, they permeate, they amplify one another. And being a survivor of sexual trauma is part of my identity. It's a huge part of my identity. It's something that I've experienced in various ways throughout my life, and my work is built around it. So it is very much about my identity. The other part of Medusa is that her blood sacrifice actually heals other individuals. There's another god that used her blood as an opportunity to resurrect others. So it's healing. So looking at my experiences and sacrifices on that level as an opportunity to help other women, which I have, so there's a lot of ways that understanding where the asteroids and the dark feminine energy is in the chart has helped to just accept my stories, but also understand and really like hone my witchy powers, my intuition, deepen that, strengthen that, trust in it, and also serve. You know what I mean? Like seeing where all of these asteroids are in different areas of my chart. There's stuff in there about herbalism in my house, my fifth house of self-expression, and grief in that house as well, which I talk about grief in my business. I use herbs in my business, and I was doing this
Right. And not
before I
knowing
got
that it
so
was in there, right?
yeah. So it is just it's really beautiful to see the way that it plays out. And then, if you're somebody who likes history, you can really look at the way these asteroids have played a part in history. So one of the books that I love, it's Asteroid Goddesses,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's by
I'm going to have to get
Demetra
that.
George.
I'm
Yes,
definitely going to have to get that.
it's the mythology, psychology, and astrology of the reemerging feminine. So basically, the first four asteroids that were discovered, Juno, Vesta, um, Ceres, Pallas, Athena, and Juno. Those were the first four that were discovered, and they coincided with this reemergent of the feminine in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And you can see astrologically how these turn of events with different planets and different asteroids, especially, there is this reemerging, this rising
Mhm.
of feminine energy. We're seeing these things
Oh, yes.
happen right now. I mean, during the Me Too movement a couple of years ago, Eris, another dark goddess, that's when she was discovered and named. And Eris is the goddess of discord and chaos.
Mhm.
And she is very much about sovereignty and bodily autonomy. And side note, a variant of COVID is actually named Eris, which is
Mhm.
it's very
Very
interesting in the past
interesting.
year. So she is about uh if you remember, if anybody remembers Xena Warrior Princess, that's
Yes.
Eris energy. That like just messing stuff up. But it's to bring the truth to light. It's when there is hypocrisy and people are not willing to look at the truth. She brings that truth to light, and she's demonized for it. She's also represented by Maleficent. If anybody remembers Maleficent, she played the evil queen. But if you remember what happened to her first, she had her wings cut off by her lover, so she was betrayed. And I think that we can see in society where when women decide that they've had enough and they're going to stand up and retaliate, on some level, we are demonized. We are called crazy, called over emotional. We are not believed in the court system. We're not supported. There are a lot of ways that women continue to suffer on a monumental level, for using our voice and for not using our voice. And, I feel like just learning about the goddess astrology is so important because we are missing our feminine connection. We're missing a connection to nature, to the land. And I think that separation from Mother Nature is truly at the root of so many of the things that are going on in our society. I think it's the root of so many things that are going on in our bodies and in our psyches. There's a lot of different ways that approaching life with the feminine and holistic perspective can be healing for so many reasons. And there's another book, there's two more, but this one, this is The Alphabet versus the Goddess. And it is phenomenal. And it actually talks about how the invention of literature led to some of the downfall of feminism, because our right brain, the right side of our brain, are more feminine and holistic. But the left side is the logical, do things in order, and it takes our left side of our brain to be reading and writing. So when we started implementing that, we started using the right side less. Therefore, feminine principles, being dissected from the land and Mother Nature, and the rituals that we committed in the name of the goddess. You can see how patriarchy comes in and takes over a lot of different things. Another good book, if you want to get a little bit more into that history of the goddess and just appreciating what our connection to the land used to be like. It's Mysteries of the Dark Moon. And this is also by Demetra George. She is one of the only people that I have found that really focuses around goddess asteroids and goddess astrology. I have not personally found anybody who is doing it to the depth that I am, because I'm a curious little researcher, and
Because
I
it
am
does take a
always
lot of research, sure, because
I'm
you're plotting asteroids in someone's chart, really. And now, are you doing it in addition to the traditional chart, or
yes.
instead? Yeah, because that's what I thought.
No,
You're doing it in
I'm
addition, so there's double the work.
yeah, I'm doing it in addition because I think that it can just be so helpful to see how those energies coexist together, because we all are masculine and feminine. We all have both energies in our body. It exists, out in nature. And I think it's important to express that duality in a healthy manner. So when I do somebody's chart, I have 3 offerings, and what I
I'd
did
like to
was
hear about them, because now I'm curious. And I said earlier, I did a 10-week course with somebody pretty famous. And yes, I learned some things. I'm lucky I understand cardinal sign, but I got it a little bit. But I had a friend who was really into it, who did my chart, my husband's chart, and my daughter's chart, and she did them all manually. This was years ago, and she did them manually, and she figured everything out. And I know, mathematics involved with it. And I was able to find my daughter's and my husband's, and I still can't find mine. I suspect that I had it filed in my office at the time, and I'm still like digging through, because I wanted to keep them manually. But it's funny that you say that, because now because I'm the type of person that does research like you. I like to dig into everything. And I actually have on my ankle tattooed Juno, Pallas, and Vesta, and just
oh,
have them and don't know why I have them, because they are not really astrological signs, but they are asteroids in the cosmos. So it's odd that I have those 3 on my ankle.
that's
So now
interesting.
I'm going to have the chart done from you. I'm desperately interested to see what's going to come out. I'd love
Well,
to know.
so I will say, I just want to add the other thing that has been really helpful. If anybody listened to my last episode with you, or has experienced a lot of loss and grief in their lives, Persephone is one of the goddesses, the dark goddesses that I look at in our chart, and she represents going into the underworld as a young, naive maiden and doing her time in hell, and then coming up and rising as a queen. So, just the perspective of looking at what our darkness has brought us and how we bring that into the light in service to other people is important. I started learning a little bit about synastry charts and putting the charts together with another person. And I was able to really find some deep healing around my brother's death. There were asteroids in there related to karma and karmic purpose where we tied up, and it was just, I mean, it was kind of like a gut punch, but it was also this internal knowing of this
Like
soul contract. And
a
yeah,
release.
and a lot of people a lot of people in the spiritual community talk about soul contracts, and those are the types of things that you can look at within the realm of astrology, and especially with the goddesses. I've looked at a lot of people's charts that have experienced loss, and I looked at the transit for that day to help them understand, like, how to grieve this. What could this possibly have been meant for? What can I turn this into? And I think, the other kicker was I actually did a chart. I did the poster board with the post-it notes. I did a chart for my business. So I
Oh,
thought of and secured my business name, Intentional Holistic Healing, um, 2 years before I even opened. So I did the birth date for my business as the initial day that I did the paperwork, at the office. Again, 2 years before I opened. And to see the chart for my business, my husband was like,
yeah.
oh, oh, he was like, maybe. I think there was something to this. And I was like, I told you. Because to see the way holistic health and our deepest wounds and transformation of trauma and just all of this energy played out in my business chart was uncanny. There's no way to explain something like that, having been in there 2 years before I even started and really knew what I was going to get into doing. So it can be very healing and very supportive in accepting um, some of the themes of our lives, and understanding that these things are not here to make us suffer, but we are supposed to be learning something and transforming and alchemizing that. So I have three offerings for
Yes,
people.
that's what I'd
I
like to ask you. How does one get in touch with you to get this
have
stuff?
so I you can go on my website. It's intentionalholistichealing.com. You can email me from there. I
And it's
am
the
on
same one as
Instagram.
before. You just have this on there in
Yep.
addition. Okay, so I will put that in the
Yep.
description again.
Yeah, I updated my astrology page. So I have a basic workbook, and that is just the dark goddess asteroids, and I believe it has 5 or 6 of the dark goddess asteroids, and it doesn't have any of the other planetary stuff, just the dark goddess asteroids. So if you're very new to astrology, or if you already have your other chart and just want to see the dark goddess asteroids, this is
Oh, that's a nice
beneficial.
offer.
Yeah, and it also has shadow work journal prompts to go with these dark goddesses. So you can kind of get an idea of how this energy plays out in your life. And then I have a 1 hour virtual reading that I go through your chart. I look up probably around 25 to 30 asteroids to see where they sit. And I choose all the most prominent ones in there, and I do a virtual reading. I record it, send it to you. That has an add-on option workbook where you can get the journal prompts, and also the houses, the signs, and houses, signs, planets. If you're not that familiar, it's something to refer back to. And then I also have this is the Big Mac Daddy. This is the first thing I did, and I created this probably 2 years ago, but it is a 60-page
Oh,
book,
wow.
and it goes through everything in your chart. It goes through your regular planets, and it goes through all of the asteroids, and it shows how everything melds together. It gives embodiment practices for you to consider based on your chart. It has the journal work in there. It has a 30-minute session with me where you can go over things and ask some questions. And then anybody who invests in any of my astrology offerings, they will automatically get grandfathered into. I just started this. It is a monthly support group for women that are interested in really integrating this information into a daily working for them. So I'll have a new moon meeting each month, and then I have a full moon meeting each month. And what we do, we meet for an hour, and I talk about the transits for the new moon or the full moon, how that is going to kind of collectively play out for us, different themes we're going to see, things that you might want to work on, shadow work wise, different body stuff and behaviors that might be coming up. And it's an opportunity to, ask some more questions around your chart, like how this might be impacting me. It is an opportunity to reflect with other women about the different themes that you're seeing, because the thing is with astrology, whether people believe it or not, or understand the language or not, it is affecting us on a mass level. And you can look at history. The things that are happening in the next few years in the US have happened
Yes, they've
before in the
plotted
years
that. Yes, they've
that we
plotted
have had
presidents, astrology. Yeah, they've
wars
plotted
and
and war. They've
revolutions.
plotted. Right.
Yeah. So it's, being embodied, being able to advocate for yourself, knowing your values and where you stand in the age of AI, being able to connect with your intuition and really speak up for the things that you value in your life, it is very important. It is some of the most important work I feel like that we can be doing here. And I have done so many different healing things in the past 20 years. And I have to say that this work has been some of the most supportive and encouraging work that I've ever done. And it allows me to navigate life's ebbs and flows, because there are times that can just feel so heavy and burdensome. I
Yes.
think as everybody is feeling that right now, and we all want an answer as to like why certain things happen. And this has helped me gain a little bit more perspective on our short time here and what we're really meant to do with it. So if I can help other women in that path, that that's exciting to me, to help other women just kind of come back to themselves, be able to speak up confidently. That's important to me.
So all of this is on your new page your updated
Yes.
page of
Yep.
Goddess Astrology. Yes, because when you first
Yep.
were on, we touched upon it briefly. So, and that's why I
Yeah.
asked you back, because it is a very in-depth. I mean, like you could go on and on. It's very in-depth. And
Yeah.
and once someone has their chart done, then they can go from there, because I'm sure that the benefit, especially of the group, is important for
Yeah,
many.
and
So it's a
I
wonderful thing you're
do
offering.
have I do have, if you're feeling like you need a little bit more support and you need private support, I offer Voxer packages, and that's just like the walkie-talkie thing. So it's a good opportunity to get real-time support. If you're kind of on the go, if you don't have time to sit down, it's an opportunity to collaborate back and forth with me in the privacy, of your home, and get a little bit more support on how to utilize these energies to, your best capacity.
Well, I want to thank you, first of all, Stephanie, for coming on today, and to talk just a little bit about this. I just find it so interesting. And I guess such important work too, because it's work that goes hand in hand with the other work that we're all
Mhm.
doing, so much more so than many of us see. And an
Yeah.
opportunity for people to heal through this work, through taking part in it. So I do want to thank you, and I definitely will put all the information in the description box so people know where to get a hold of you. And hopefully you'll be on again. I mean, I know you're very busy. I know you do a lot of in-person events in your area, as well as all of this work that you're doing. And I know, of course, you are a massage therapist with all your clients, so you're always very, very busy, but I hope that you'll be able to come on again. We can talk about another topic that that we both find interesting. So
I would love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on again and just allowing me to share my passion, because this isn't something that a lot of people are doing or a lot of people know about or have ever even thought about doing. So I'm really happy to share it and just hopefully open some minds out there. So thank you so much.
oh, you're quite welcome. I'm thrilled that you came. I mean, it's a topic that is very interesting and one that really needs to be talked about. And I think that a lot of women, especially, are going to find this very fascinating and something that really can help them. It's another tool for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need all the
Absolutely.
tools we can get, right? Especially
We
on the
do.
road to, well, no, on the road to healing and wellness and, finding our own voice. Um, all the tools that are out there should be at our beck and call.
I will end it with just saying that it has allowed me, um I think as women, like, we're just kind of designed to carry guilt and people pleasing and all those things, but honestly this work has allowed me to learn how to love myself and accept myself and just really acknowledge my own worth and my own magic and be kind to myself, which has just amplified my capacity to require it from the other people in my life and cut myself away from the relationships that don't provide that reciprocity. And I think that that more than anything, like, women coming to a place where they can be kind to themselves and engage in loving and supportive relationships with others is healing to the entire world. It is healing to our bloodlines, to our ancestors, to our future children. And I think that that is really important work to be doing. And I'm grateful that this, has claimed me, so to speak.
Yes. Well, I thank you. On that note, I thank you, and hopefully we will speak soon.
Thank you. Bye,
All right,
everyone.
bye, Stephanie.